going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Monday. It's the day after the afternoon before, not the night before, the day after the match before, which of course was Manchester United versus Newcastle at Old Trafford yesterday, 0-0. Frustrating results, certainly. We're going to get into all of it this morning, so don't you worry, guys. But disappointing and frustrating result. First draw of the season for Manchester United. First draw of the season for Erik ten Hag as well. It comes at home. Newcastle, of course, they've had, it's like 4 draws, or I think something now like that this season. So they're a difficult team to beat. But we're going to get into all of it this morning, guys. So don't you worry for another match day reload. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Remember, as always, you can join the UV Members Club. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat too. Get your badges, you get your emojis, you get your exclusive members-only content as well. A lot of people, I saw it in the chat, saying they had their yellow cards ready. Tabislol, big up the mods, says, I'm preparing the yellow card, just saying. Tabislol said it was a close call. Kristen said it was close to a yellow card. I don't know what you're talking about. I am well on time this morning. It is 9:01. We started at 9 o'clock. We're prompt. I am. Doing our best to be prompt as possible. So appreciate you all joining, guys. As mentioned, smash a like on the like button as we get into everything this morning. What are we going to cover this morning? Well, obviously, we're going to talk about the game. We're also going to talk about Erik ten Hag, his quotes after the game yesterday. Not a lot really came out of the press conference, and it was quite a short one, and the discussion to the media as well. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get, obviously, all of the clips from everyone that spoke after the game yesterday, including people outside Old Trafford, such as Flex, Faz, Marcel. Going to get some opinions from people inside UVHQ yesterday, particularly KG and Mina. Ho, ho, ho. If you thought that WWE was on the rise, if you thought that, I tell you what, Owen, it's getting near to November, which means it's Survivor Series time. Oh, there could be Survivor Series teams between KG and Mina. We've got to set that out. Who would actually? That is a good start to the morning, actually, because it was getting lively, as Sky Sports would say. It was getting heated. It was getting heated during the match. We got heated after the game. Mina actually snatched the microphone out of my hand, which was pretty interesting as well. So let me know in the chat, KG Survivor Series team, Mina's Survivor Series team, who would be in them? You can let me know in the chat. That would be a lot of fun. So we're going to get opinions from everyone as well. We're going to talk about Marcus Rashford. We're going to talk about Fred. We're going to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. Talking about the absence of Christian Eriksen. Jadon Sancho's performance yesterday. Bruno Fernandes. Anthony. We're going to talk about the games coming up too. Chelsea and, of course, Spurs this coming Wednesday. We're going to talk about how defensively, actually, we were okay yesterday. And we're also going to talk about Casemiro. So we've got a loaded show for you guys this morning. So let's get straight into Erik ten Hag's quotes after the game, because it was quite interesting to see what the Manchester United manager would have to say, of course, because it was somewhat similar to the game against Ammonia in that it was a frustrating day for Manchester United. Now, of course, the difference between Ammonia and Newcastle, obviously there's quite a few in terms of quality, competition, etc. But the similarities were that it was just, we just weren't clinical. We couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, and we had more chances against Ammonia than we did against Newcastle. But certainly yesterday, you can come out of that game saying that, actually, you know what? Manchester United had opportunities to win. We really did. Were we the better side? Probably edged it in the second half. It was not a good game to watch whatsoever. Thank God it wasn't televised, to be honest, because it was dull. It was boring from both sides. I was quite surprised how Newcastle set up yesterday, in that I expected them to play quite proactive football and quite possession-based football, and Marcel kind of touched on that, and he's right. I think Newcastle came to Old Trafford really looking for a point and maybe hoping to hit us on the break, and they nearly did that. First half, of course, they hit the bar, they hit the post from Joelinton, but I was just shocked by, in certain instances, just how direct Newcastle was, because they would get a free kick in their own half, maybe just outside the centre circle, and they would go, right, we're putting this in the box. we're putting this in the box, and for irrespective of them doing that, actually, you know what? I feel like Manchester United defended that very well, fairly well. Again, apart from the Joelinton chance in the first half, which he should score, I was quite happy with United's defensive performance yesterday, particularly again second half. We had nothing to do, really nothing to do in that second half. That back four looks assured. Dalot, Varane, Martinez. Yesterday it was Shaw instead of Malacia. I think Luke Shaw's done very well since he's come in. But really where the game was not lost, but drawn, was in those attacking areas, was that front three, was the just a lack of creativity I think, at times. And then when we did have the opportunities, it falls to the wrong person, like a Fred and Rashford. He has to do better. He has to minimum get that on target. He has to score. Could argue if a Ronaldo was onto that, he would probably score. But does Ronaldo get into that position at this period of time? We're getting into the land of hypotheticals, certainly. So Erik ten Hag, after the game, spoke to the media, of course. He said, quote, "The performance was good. A clean sheet. We pressed well. We controlled the game. And in stages, we were good on the ball, especially in the second half. Then we dictated the game. And in the end, we should have scored the winning goal. One from Fred and then one from Rashford had to score." And to be fair, I think in terms of a general analysis, in short terms, he's pretty much right there. I mean, did we play terribly yesterday? I saw a lot of negativity coming out of the game, and I'm not sure it's completely justified, to be honest. I think that, was it a perfect performance? No. Is there still, a long way to go? Yes. And is there steady progression? I do think there is. It's a tough watch still at times. And I think that I look back to what we were talking about when Erik ten Hag first came in, or the announcement was first made about Erik ten Hag becoming the Manchester United manager. And a lot of people said, and they're right, and they still are right, a lot of people said there are going to be games where it's a tough watch. There are going to be games or times where it's difficult, i.e. Manchester City, or i.e. Brighton at home. That Brentford one is never acceptable, but the Brighton at home, or games like yesterday where you're coming out of it frustrated and you're saying, come on, this is Manchester United. We've got great players, we've got attacking players, and it's going to be frustrating. But we also do have to realise where we've come from last year and what process we're on. Can you have criticisms toward Erik ten Hag of maybe, should he brought more people on? Should he made more than one sub yesterday? I think that's a fair criticism. You look at the bench and you could argue, well, what options did he really have there? But if you're good enough to be named on the bench, why can't you be brought on? If the players on the pitch aren't performing or aren't doing what they should do, then maybe you should look to the bench to bring them on. But at the same time, whilst it wasn't a pretty watch and whilst it was frustrating, a better side, well, actually not a better side, I should use my words more carefully here, like Thanos. You should choose your words more carefully. That's a line, Infinity War. But a more clinical side, like a Spurs is a great example. And I'm not saying we want to be Spurs, but Spurs is an example at the moment. A side, say, like Spurs, would have won that game yesterday 2-0 and come out of it going, you know what? Didn't play very well. Tough watch, but we had 2 chances at the end. 2-0, looks comfortable on paper. We move on to the next one. We got the 3 points. And that's the difference at the moment between Manchester United. It's just a case of we're not clinical. And with some of the players on the pitch, like yesterday, Sancho, Ronaldo, Antony, you would expect Manchester United to be clinical. But for whatever reason, we're not at the moment. And we can talk to death about tactics, and we will today. Tactical View is back, by the way. I'm going to be hosting it with Statman Cam, so be sure to check that out. But you can talk about the intricacies of football, but if you're not going to put the ball in the back of the net, you're not going to win games. Easy as that. But again, I don't think it was a totally negative performance. And that is Manchester United this season. They're like a box of chocolates, Forrest Gump settings. You have no idea what you're going to get. I think defensively, we are seeing progression. Absolutely, we're seeing progression defensively. I still have my concerns about the midfield, that we got overrun at points yesterday. I have my concerns that the drop-off in creativity when we don't have Christian Eriksen is clearly there to be seen. You don't have Eriksen in the side, you ain't creating barely anything. And certainly your dictating of the tempo isn't that great. And that front three, we need more fluidity there. And I'm not going to sit here this morning and go, that's because of Ronaldo, that's because of whatever. I just said you could look across that entire front three and just say they were very passive. They didn't take many risks. Bruno Fernandes, again, largely a passenger in the game. So it's more in those attacking areas that Erik ten Hag will be looking for that fluidity, because defensively we're very robust. I think we're very solid. And Newcastle ain't a bad side. Clearly, we want to and we should be beating them at Old Trafford, and we had opportunities to beat them at Old Trafford. But they've only lost once this season to Liverpool away, and they were very unlucky to lose that. They've drawn a load of games. They're difficult to beat. But that's what you've got. That's what Erik ten Hag will be looking at, because other opposition teams will look at Newcastle yesterday and say, well, that's what you got to do when you go to Old Trafford. Play a bit direct, not necessarily park the bus, but once Manchester United are in transition, you've got to get back in your shape really, really quickly. And if you do, they can't break you down because they don't have that little bit of creativity. And that's what we really saw yesterday. But overall, we could have won that game. And again, that's the point too. We could have and maybe should have won that game. But you've got to take your chances. That's it. Ten Hag then continued saying, quote, "In the end, we could have got the win. We deserved the win. It's a big compliment to the team that we deserved this with a physical performance against one of the most physical teams in the league. They all had cramp and we kept going." He then said, "The team understands from front to back we cooperate together. We are hard to beat and we must keep that going." Now, when asked about Christian Eriksen, he said, quote, "We miss him when he's not available, but we have a squad and another 11 players on the pitch. So then we have to construct another team and we can bring players from the bench who are all good." And look, he's obviously going to say that. He's obviously going to say it's a squad game. That's why we've got a squad. That's why we've got people in these positions. But anyone could see yesterday just how much we miss Christian Eriksen. And it's almost a credit to Eriksen, really, isn't it? You know, when we signed Eriksen in the summer, first of all, there was the outside of, oh, you've signed this guy and, you know, he's got a pacemaker. He doesn't. It's an internal defibrillator. But he's got a pacemaker and, oh, he's a free transfer from Brentford. He's going to be this, that, and the other. Well, he's very important. Clearly, he's very important to us. You can see it already. If he's not playing, we struggle to create anything. Now, you know, you could argue, yes, there would have been a different result if Eriksen's there. I think we would have made more chances. And that's the key. You know, would have Eriksen made the same run that Fred would have, because obviously Fred was in there for Eriksen yesterday, would have Eriksen made that run? Maybe not. That's not really Eriksen's game. But what he could say is that in those moments, particularly in that second half, where Newcastle were behind the ball, Eriksen's the kind of person that can find that right pass in that right moment, create something, find a bit of space or find a player that other people can't see, find a pass that other people can't see. And that's kind of the difference there. Now, when asked, will Eriksen be back to face his former club Spurs on Wednesday, Ten Hag said, quote, "I don't know if he'll be available for Wednesday, but I hope so, of course." And again, he was out of action because he was ill yesterday. So that was the situation there. Now, when he continued saying, obviously, he was asked about the referee's performance. Ten Hag said, quote, "I don't have a comment on the ref's performance." And it must be said, I do recommend, guys, I really recommend to go watch the post-game press conference because the journalists were all in on the referee's performance. And they were all in on making Erik Ten Hag slip up and talk about the referee's performance to the point that Ten Hag said, "I know what you're trying. I know what you're trying to do. I'm not going to talk about the referee's performance." The referee yesterday had a poor game. It's not sour grapes to say that. I think he missed penalties for both sides. I think absolutely Newcastle could have had a penalty in the first half with Callum Wilson. I think the Sancho penalty is pretty much spot on in terms of it should have been a penalty. I think it's a bang-on penalty. The problem is he was somewhat theatrical, but it doesn't matter. If there's contact, there's contact. There should have been a penalty. And, you know, and he was just poor. I mean, the offside one, the Ronaldo goal that was ruled out or whatever. I mean, if you want to start getting technical, to be honest with you, like people, because the point was that they said, "Oh, we heard a whistle," but in fairness to the referee in that instance, he has his hand up in the air and blows the whistle. So you are really, really reaching at straws there, in my opinion. But again, there definitely, I think, should have been 2 penalties in the game, and the referee had a poor performance. But like I said, you can't. If you're starting to look at situations like that with the referee, I think it's desperate. We should have created more. We didn't create enough. And we did have 2 chances to win the game. That, like I said, a more clinical side puts those away and you win the game 2-0 and you say, "Oof, we didn't play great. That was a tough game, but we got through that." And that's the difference. And my concern is now when we go to playing Spurs on Wednesday, which is at Old Trafford, is that if you thought Newcastle are a side that's difficult to break down, we know exactly what Spurs are going to do. We know what their game plan is Wednesday. They're going to sit back. They're going to soak up pressure. And maybe in instances yesterday where Newcastle were on the counter-attack, but they just didn't have enough quality to really put us to the sword, you know, because they did have a couple of players missing. You've got people at Spurs that will put us to the sword. Harry Kane and Son will not miss. And that's what we've got to be really, really, really careful for, because even in games against City and against Ammonia, actually, when we were away from home, we've seen recently in transition, we can be very vulnerable. So that's going to be really, really key to look out for when it comes to Wednesday. Now, when he was asked, Ten Hag, about, he took Ronaldo off. The only substitution he made was Ronaldo for Rashford in the second half. Ten Hag said, quote, "We have to cover 4 games in 10 days. I want to keep the strikers fresh. We have to rotate there. Rashi didn't have the energy for the whole game, so we have to plan it." I think he did say also that Rashford may have been feeling under the weather too, so there might be somewhat of a sickness bug in the Manchester United camp. That's maybe why Rashford didn't start yesterday. But he also did mention, and the quote doesn't cover that, but he also did mention in the post-match press conference that in addition to wanting to keep the strikers fresh, he's limited. He said Martial, he's unavailable. We don't know if he's going to be back for Wednesday. There was a hope he was going to be back for yesterday. He wasn't. Maybe you could say the Chelsea game he might be back for. And I think Ten Hag's point is, well, I'm really limited up front. And Ronaldo still did miss pre-season. He still is nearly 38 years of age. You've got to keep the strikers fresh. So that was reason why. And in reality, and he might not say this in the press conference, Ronaldo wasn't massively involved in the game either. And I'm not going to criticize him, say he was terrible. It was a terrible performance by him or anything like that. But he just wasn't really involved in the game. The unfortunate thing is, as I mentioned, at the end, if that chance does come to Ronaldo instead of Rashford, he probably scores. However, with how Ronaldo was in that game, is he even going to be in that position? I don't know. So it's difficult to say. It really is. So what do you guys think of yesterday? Let me know in the chat as well. Ed T says, to be fair, we drew with a Newcastle that took Liverpool and City to their limits. Look, they're not a bad side. V Cobra confirms what I was just talking about there. Rashford was feeling under the weather. That's why he didn't start. He did mention that yesterday too. All Elite says, not creating enough chances, can't be put down to no Eriksen. Where was Bruno? Where was Sancho? Where were the others? No, I agree. My point was that with Eriksen, that there might have been, particularly in the latter stages of that second half, there might have been that moment where Eriksen can find the pass that others can't. The not creating chances absolutely is due to the people on the pitch too. I thought Bruno was a passenger the entire game. I thought Sancho, like I said, was largely ineffective. Should have had a penalty. But in a game, and this is why it was quite interesting. Again, I think he was kind of forced because Rashford was feeling under the weather. But in a game where you probably would need a little bit of pace, a little bit of dynamism to beat a player with that really static Newcastle defence, Sancho's not the player, in my opinion, to do that. So, the criticism has to be on the players on the pitch as well. No doubt about that. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. There we go. David Lee. Big up David Lee. Big up Mod. He's a legend, David Lee. He's a legend. Mod, and has also been a member for 5 months. Look at that, 5 months of support, David Lee. Big up. And says, big up Owen. Big up yourself, David Lee, and big up the entire UV community. Appreciate all the support, all the hard work that you do, and be sure to get the likes up, as All Elite is saying. Mr. Phelan will be rearing his head. We've got nearly 400 people watching, just over 50 likes. We can do better. We can get to 100, at least 150, 200. You know what it's like with these solo streams. It's just you and I. It's very intimate, and it's just, we're in this together, guys. We can do this. So there you go. So what did Flex think of the game? Of course, he was inside the stadium for the match and was outside Old Trafford afterwards and gave his view on the 0-0 draw.
I think it's important to remember where we're at. It's important to remember where we're trying to go. And it's important to remember how long it's going to take to get there. I'll start by saying that. I think today was the first reminder in action, because we've always known it at the back of our heads, of what happens when your absolute strongest team isn't available, and the drop-off in quality is there to be seen. And realistically, I'm talking about one player, really. I'm going to start right where it hurts, and that's Fred. I think the drop-off in quality from Christian Eriksen to Fred was there to see for all of us in terms of on the ball. Fred does a lot of things that are good. He does some things that we need in this team. He works really hard. He's got a great attitude and stuff like that. But when it comes to being on the ball, when it comes to being in the final third, when it comes to finishing chances, when it comes to creating chances, when it comes to keeping the ball, when it comes to manipulating the ball and dictating play, these are all crosses, in my opinion, in Fred's game. As a squad player, you would like to say that Fred has a role, and the drop-off from Christian Eriksen and how we struggled in that area because he wasn't there, we really, really felt that today. Newcastle are a good side. This is a Newcastle without Alan St-Maximin and without Alexander Isak, so we do have to give credit to them. I know they were, the time wasted and we were getting frustrated, but by and large, they kept us to not many chances. And the second thing I want to talk about is just lack of being clinical, because again, this game could have gone either way. I thoroughly understand that. The Joe Linton chance, 2 chances in quick succession, was pretty much all Newcastle had all day, but probably should have been a goal for them. But if you look at the chances we had, Fred at the death again, I feel sorry because you wanted that chance to drop to anyone but Fred. And he wants to go on his favoured left foot when he should probably go over his right foot. Tries to let the ball roll across his body, no open out his body, and he misses. And then Marcus Rashford, right at the death, has a great cross from Casemiro. It's basically on a plate. All he has to do is get his neck muscles behind it, get clean connection, and he misses in the dying moments. And the problem is that we're not scoring enough goals right now. We're not clinical enough in front of goal. And I said it. We weren't going to get 30 chances like against Ammonia in midweek. It just wasn't going to happen. So anything we had against this team, who have only lost once, Newcastle, and that was against Liverpool in the dying minutes, so they know how to win football matches, or certainly know how to not lose football matches. Anything we had against them.
Those are the views of Flex outside Old Trafford yesterday after after Manchester United's 0-0 draw with Newcastle. Starlord as well puts, speaking of UV membership, has been a member for 5 months too. Big up Starlord for all the support. I think he was actually the first member as well. I believe he was the OG member of the UV Members Club. You can join him. Click on the link in the video description. There's also the pinned comment in the live chat as well. It says, top of the morning to absolutely everyone. Top of the morning to yourself, Starlord too. Speaking of what Flex was talking about there, he was speaking about Fred. There was a lot of criticism yesterday for Fred, justifiably so. He was really poor, I thought, in terms of what we've come to expect in a Ten Hag system from Manchester United midfielders. He was really sloppy on the ball, and so was everyone, but he was a cut above in terms of being sloppy on the ball. Obviously, he had those chances, and it felt like yesterday, almost just every good chance happened to fall to him, apart from the Rashford chance at the end. And the concern is, to Flex's point, is that we can look at this squad and you can look at the players in multiple positions that Erik ten Hag is talking about. You can look at all of that, but when you don't have an Eriksen in there, the drop, or even, and you can do it with other positions as well. For instance, when you don't have a Diogo Dalot in there, if he gets injured, or even Anthony on the right-hand side, you would think Alanga comes in to replace him. But the point is that if we don't have these players in these positions, and even Bruno in the 10, really, the drop-off is just going to be massive. And we saw that yesterday with Fred. If Eriksen's not playing, Fred comes in, the drop-off is huge. And in reality, given the circumstance of Eriksen not being available with the illness, it would have been a perfect game for Scott McTominay to play. But he was unavailable because of suspension. After scoring that late winner in midweek against Ammonia on Thursday, and how his recent form has been, which is pretty good, he'd have been good for yesterday. And given his recent form, I think in the last few minutes, if that ball had been cut back to McTominay instead of Fred, I think McTominay probably scores that. So we could maybe say it's a case of, look, Jim says here, play Fred more. They're not match fit. The issue is we have seen this with Fred, I think, in that, well, what's Fred's qualities? This is the good conversation to have, I think, because this was the same conversation that KG and Mina were having after the game. What are Fred's qualities? What is the thing that Fred offers to the Manchester United side, right? Because you could say, well, he's not expected to score goals because that's not his game. He's not expected to get assists because that's not his game. He's not really a defensive midfielder, because I wouldn't say he's particularly adept at, he's really good at winning the ball back in terms of interceptions. I think his strength is, and this is kind of what Mina's point is, that he provides energy. He gets around the pitch a little bit. He can move the ball somewhat well, but his quality is not amazing on the ball. His technical quality is not there, but he does offer mobility, and he does offer, again, legs to get around the pitch. But is that enough? And does that necessarily fit what Erik ten Hag wants? If you've got a game where you're dominating possession, if you've got a game where you're going to have more of the ball, if you've got a game where you've got to be passing the ball forward, is Fred really for that? And the answer is no. So not only was it not the game for Fred yesterday, but the drop-off in quality was there. You can argue he hasn't played a ton of games, so maybe he's not completely in his best form as well. That's probably true. But the drop-off in quality just isn't there. And I'm not saying yesterday's going to get Fred away from the club, get him out of the club, he's not good enough, rah. But at the same time, I think he's got a year left on his contract, right? I think he's got a year left on his deal at Manchester United. We've heard the reports about Erik Ten Hag reportedly saying to the Manchester United hierarchy, actually, you know what? These players got to earn their contracts. If they're not good enough, just let them go. There's going to be some really difficult times for Manchester United in terms of player departures, and we just kind of got to bite the bullet when it comes to that. Arsenal's a great example of it. You put out a load of money on some of these players, didn't work out. They're on big contracts. People don't want to buy them. People don't want to pick up those contracts. Unfortunately, just let them go. Take the loss. Take the L, because it was already an L when you bought them. And I think Fred's a good example of that. Is he still going to contribute towards the end of the season? Of course he is. Of course he's going to contribute towards the end of the season. Is he going to play games? Of course he is. But long term, I think he's 29 at this point. Long term, is he ideal for Manchester United? No, he's not. And I think, again, not basing this off yesterday, but just basing this overall, I'd let his contract run, to be honest. Take the owl. I mean, how much did we spend on him back in 2018? What was it? I think it was, what was it, 50 million? Something ridiculous like that. You can let me know in the chat. So, again, it's squad depth, isn't it? That's what it is. It's squad depth. And Fred comes in yesterday and you see the drop-off. We didn't draw the game because of Fred. So everyone putting the performance and the draw or the drop points completely on him, that's not fair. But I'm talking about long-term overall. Is he right for Manchester United? The answer is no. And again, these are the difficult decisions that Manchester United and Erik Ten Hag have to make going forward. No room for sentiment. No, he's a good guy, or he can get around the pitch, or he can do a job. I'm tired of he can do a job. For a lot of players, they can do a job when we need it. No, let's try and bring some standards back in. So he was poor yesterday, and it wasn't the game for him. And going forward, I don't see how he fits in Ten Hag's system. There's a reason, ultimately, why he hasn't played a ton of games for United this season. Because it doesn't really fit. He doesn't fit Ten Hag's style. You know, if all of the midfielders are available, if McTominay and Eriksen are available, Fred's what? Fourth choice? Realistically, we had like the fourth choice midfielder playing yesterday. And again, this isn't just to single out Fred. There are a lot of players in the United side that, again, I'm tired of, well, they could do a job if we need it. No, a lot of them need to be moved on. But the point is, and to Flex's point, this is part of the process. Those things don't happen overnight. Those things do take a long time because you can only get rid of so many players at one time and then bring certain players in. So we are going to have results like yesterday. We're going to have moments like yesterday. And we're going to have the moments we had on throughout the season for Manchester United. But that's, you know, that's the situation when it comes to Fred. Dilver says Owen's going to skip out the centre. Oh, he retracted it. It's the centre forward problem today. No, I'm not. We are going to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo, but there is a running order. There is a format to the show, Dilvers. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I've got everything covered today. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Got over 500 people watching. Still less than 100 likes. We can do better. We can do better. Now, G-Man says too much focus on Fred. Unfortunately, the next clip we're going to is KG and then Mina. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about Fred. But don't you worry, we are going to be talking about, as I mentioned, Marcus Rashford and Ronaldo. We're going to be talking about actually the striking options next. So let's see what KG had to say after the game. I spoke to him at UVHQ. Talk to me about Fred. There was an interesting debate between yourself and Mina after the game.
Listen, Mina's mad. Mina's mad. She said that Fred should get praised for running a lot. I can't wait for the thingy. She said he'd get praised for running a lot, and I think she's a disgrace. She's a cheat. No, she's saying that, listen, Fred gets into good positions, but get there and do what? You know what I mean? It's like, I go to work, but I don't know how to turn on the computer. Why am I here?
Has that happened to you?
I had it today. Today, basically. And you probably thought, why are you here? Like, there's no need, right? You know what I mean? You got to offer up a service. And I think Fred just running and doing nothing when he gets there is pointless because, again, you're just taking up a position where, yes, someone else should be. But here's the one. My missus, this is really bad. I'm putting myself in trouble. My missus, it's always a bad sentence already, She complains that she wants the things to be clean and stuff. If she doesn't clean it, I'm probably going to do it. But she's done it already, innit? So I'm like, all right, cool. It's really bad.
I mean, as analogies go...
It's really bad.
How does that relate to Fred?
I'm just saying...
Or is this just something you want to get across?
I'm just saying that how you're going to get there if he's not there, is what I'm saying. It's only because he's running there. You think, go on, and Fred can do it. Are you with me?
So you're thinking that the other players, like maybe a Bruno, thinking, I'd make that run, but Fred's making that
Fred's
run.
made a run already.
Shouldn't Bruno shout at him and say, I should be in there?
No, he's going to say, that's a good run to make, mate.
Yeah.
That's a good run. But again, it's one of the things of taking, I'm not like, you talk about people being natural leaders, innit? Some people naturally take the leadership thing.
I'm just still trying to figure out how this relates to the washing up.
No, it does make sense. I'm just saying that how, if you're you'll wait for someone else to do it. If they don't do it, you'll step up and go into it, is the point I'm making.
So you're saying basically Fred's got the ability or is able to make that run because other people are not making that run. So he thinks, I'll fill the space.
No, Fred, I'm saying Fred is a natural leader trying to run into these positions. He naturally wants to do it, but he's rubbish. Yeah? If Fred's not on the pitch, people make that run. Other people make that run. They've done it before.
Right.
You've seen it. Bruno makes that run. He's been there. Bruno's always making that run. Doesn't make it then because someone else has gone into that position.
You know what? I'm going to make an executive decision here. I'm going to make a change because we were going to talk a little bit about Rashford and Ronaldo in that front three. But you know what? KG did throw some slander on Mina's name there. So what we're going to do, we're going to play Mina's clip right now, and she can immediately push back to what KG said. Then we can talk about Ronaldo and Rashford and that front line. So I do want to have a good in-depth discussion about that. So KG said his view on Mina and her description of Fred after the game. Here's what Mina had to say. Frustrating day at Old Trafford. Mina, how are you feeling?
Let me just address what KG said in his fan cam, yeah? He lied on me. Let's talk about Fred. Let's talk about what I said about Fred. Fred had a horrible game, yeah? He had a horrible game. KG took my words out of... He literally twisted it. He twisted it ridiculously. I said Fred gets into positions because he's just running all the time. He's just running all the time. That's all I was saying. And I said, we need to question why Fred gets into positions that Bruno, Sancho and Anthony should be occupying. And I thought it was a valid argument. KG came here and just lied on my name.
Wow. I was like Ricky Bobby. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Oh, that was amazing. How do I follow that up?
Let's talk about the game.
Okay. Where to start? Ten Hag, should he have made more substitutions? Is there any individual performances you think should be scrutinised, or was it just disappointing all round?
It was just a disappointing performance. I can't single out one person because I can't think of one person that was even good. I think Martinez was all right. Varane was decent, but then again, Newcastle wasn't throwing much at us. We're saying that we didn't create much chances. Newcastle didn't. They looked like they were just, their tactic was just to hoof the ball into the box, target the height problem that we have. You know, we had Casemiro and Fred in the middle together, occupying that space, but Joelinton and Almiron were running into that space quite often. They didn't create much chances from that, but they were able to get into some good places, and I think Casemiro, Fred...
So what do you think of the midfield performance today, Mina?
I think Casemiro and Fred, they were occupying spaces, they were breaking stuff down, but they were a bit careless with the ball. We gave a lot of space in the middle of the park just to kind of be attacked by Almiron, Joelinton, and I think the biggest issue for us specifically was the fact that our fullbacks were playing a bit inverted every time we were playing out from the back. We weren't utilising our wingers much. I think Anthony did quite okay on the right. He was taking on his players, and I think we should have just kept attacking them from that side. I look at the performance today and you know, we didn't create any clear-cut chances, and I think that's the issue. We had that issue on Thursday where we were creating 30-something chances, but none of them were really clear-cut. Today we created like 15 chances, 2 of them on target, and I think that that's a poor statistic when we have the likes of Ronaldo, Bruno, Sancho, Anthony on the...
Shout out to Mina, man. I was so shocked when she took the microphone out my hand. That was wild. But if you enjoyed that is just a preview. I think this evening, of course, we've got the full view. It's every Monday. Last week was unbelievable. Last week's full view was very intense. It was I don't even know how to describe it. But that was just on the match view. And you know me, guys. You know me. I love a little bit of stirring, a little bit of reeling in. And I might happen to bring up some of the Fred discussion points that Mina and KG had yesterday. So if you enjoyed that is a teaser of what's to come. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I want to get to a super chat from All Elite. Appreciate the contribution. It says, we need to accept that Rashford doesn't have the clinical ability to take us where we want to go. You can't miss that chance. We need better. Glory, glory, United view. Appreciate the contribution. Yeah, let's talk about Rashford. Let's talk about Ronaldo. Let's talk about that front three, because I do want to talk about that this morning. Clearly, as I mentioned yesterday, it was not fluid enough. And I think, again, ideally, and this is the point, we are really light up front. in terms of obviously bodies, but on top of that, what Erik ten Hag wants and what he needs in that striker position. Because in an ideal world, Rashford wouldn't even be brought on to be put in that position. In an ideal world, Marcus Rashford will be brought on for Jadon Sancho, and we would have, and I say an ideal world, in Erik ten Hag's mind, in an ideal world, Anthony Martial would be playing centre forwards and Marcus Rashford would be on the left-hand side. Marcus Rashford shouldn't be in that position because Marcus Rashford should be playing up front. He's not clinical enough to be a number 9. His hold-up play isn't good enough to be a number 9. But unfortunately, our options are what they are so far this season. Cristiano Ronaldo yesterday, I thought Ronaldo did really well against Everton. I thought he looked really sharp when he came on, and I thought he looked the best he's probably looked this season. Against Ammonia on Thursday, again was really similar to yesterday against Newcastle, because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Ronaldo played terribly, because it's difficult to say Ronaldo played terribly when he didn't really do anything. He didn't really do all that much in terms of, didn't really have any chances. I think an issue was that at times Manchester United was sort of trying to force it to Ronaldo instead of maybe finding the better pass or the more available pass sometimes. But that's what you do when you play with a number 9. You always try and find your striker, and especially someone like Ronaldo, you try and give him the service because you know he'll score if you give him decent service. Yesterday, didn't really touch the ball all that much. Apart from that Newcastle free kick when he put it in the back of the net. But apart from that, he didn't do all that much. So from Ten Hag's point of view, he thought, well, I'll change it. I'll go for something because we're looking very static up front. So we'll bring on Marcus Rashford. Because that has worked, in fairness to Ten Hag's thinking. That has worked for him this season. When Rashford has played as a number 9, we've got big results. Liverpool, Arsenal. They're examples of Rashford playing as a 9, and it worked. Yesterday, he brought him on. He got a chance, and if Rashford puts that away, we go, genius. Another substitution that worked for Erik ten Hag. Rashford should put it away. As I mentioned earlier on, you could absolutely say if Ronaldo gets that chance, he does score. It's not a case of does he score, he does score if that happens. So what we are is just lacking up front. Clearly, we're lacking up front. You know, the Martial not being available is obviously a problem for Erik ten Hag because we're light. We are light up front. If we weren't light up front, Marcus Rashford wouldn't be playing in that number 9 role because he's not a striker. That's it. That is just it. Are we going to replace Ronaldo? Are we going to bring in another striker in January? Is Ronaldo going to leave in January? I think the answer is no to all of those questions. I don't think the money's going to be made available for Erik ten Hag. I don't think Ronaldo's going to leave because I don't think Manchester United will be able to or are going to find a replacement. So Ronaldo's going to stay and he'll leave at the end of the season on a free transfer. And we are going to have, as a process, games like yesterday because of that, whereby maybe we don't have the strength in depth of number 9s that Erik ten Hag wants. Is what's Martial's fitness going to look like for the rest of the season? I don't know. I really hope, like you, I really hope Martial can turn it around and he can build up some fitness this season. He shouldn't go to the World Cup. I don't think he will. If he does, that would be a massive concern for me because the guy hasn't been able to last 90 minutes, let alone 2 or 3 weeks playing games in every 3 or 4 days. So he shouldn't go to the World Cup and he should spend that winter period trying to build up his fitness again. Essentially what it should be for Anthony Martial is another pre-season, another fitness-based pre-season over that winter break, build up your fitness, and then the second half of the season, here's hoping Martial's available. But if he goes through the rest of this season, stop, start, then again, we need to have a conversation next season. We need to sign a striker anyway, irrespective of if Ronaldo stays or leaves. If Ronaldo leaves, we need to sign 2 strikers because we're light. We're really, really light up front in terms of the striker that Ten Hag wants. So that's clearly a problem. And we're going to be inconsistent anyway because, again, your manager's betting in a new style of play and these players, their mindset is still questionable from last season. They're still fragile. On top of that, in a key position, such as your number 9, the ideal player that Ten Hag wants isn't available. The backup, and that's what Ronaldo is, and people have to just get it through their heads. Ronaldo is a backup option in Erik ten Hag's mind to Anthony Martial this season. We'll have games like yesterday, whereby if you give Ronaldo the right service, if you give Ronaldo the right pass, he will score goals. The game against Everton's a great example of that. Casemiro, great pass, one-on-one on goal. Ronaldo will score that. He will score that most of the time. If you put in a decent cross, Ronaldo's between the 2 centre-backs, he will score that goal. But in games like yesterday, where service can be somewhat difficult to come by, you might need something different. You might need a different option in that number 9 position. You might need someone that's going to be more mobile than Cristiano Ronaldo. But we don't have that because Martial's injured and Rashford is better off the left-hand side. And I don't see Manchester United addressing that in January. I really don't, because I think we spent a lot of money in the summer, and I think the Glazonomics will be in full effect, and it'll be a case of United saying, wait until the summer. United don't really like to do business in January anyway, especially after they spent so much in the summer window, which is their fault. They overpaid because they did bad business. And we did say Manchester United will suffer because of the bad business they did in the summer in terms of overspending or paying too much. When we'll suffer is January, where ideally we could bring in someone else, or we should bring in someone else, but I don't think we will. And because of that, we're going to have 0-0s, or we're going to have, losses where we go, we've got to be more clinical. That's going to be the problem for Manchester United this season. And I think next summer, looking way forward to next summer, you look at those positions that would be needing to be addressed for Manchester United, centre forward, clearly, even if by that point, Anthony Martial has proven he can stay fit for the rest of the season, clearly, we need another striker, because Ronaldo will be gone. We probably need 2 strikers, to be honest with you. We would need, again, I think, a right back. We would need to address the goalkeeping situation. That has to be addressed at some point. De Gea did fine yesterday, but I don't think he's the long-term choice for Manchester United. Huge celebration, huge respect, 500 games. But you have to, again, not hold on to sentiment and say that actually to progress forward in the style that Erik ten Hag wants, we do need a keeper that's more proficient with his feet. That is just a fact. And, and in addition to that, you could probably bring in that keeper on half the wages that David De Gea has and move them on to someone else. So there's still massive surgery. Ralph Rangnick said open heart surgery for Manchester United squad. There's still massive surgery. There's multiple operations. It's not all going to be fixed in one go. And because of that, we're going to have challenging games like yesterday. That is going to be the season for Manchester United, unfortunately. Now, I did bring up David De Gea, and you know what that means. It means time for Marcel. He didn't speak about De Gea after the game, but he did have some thoughts on it. So let's see what Marcel had to say.
For a draw. Second half comes along now, and Ten Hag had to make a change. Ronaldo just wasn't giving us what Rashford does give us.
You think Rashford should have started?
Yeah, 100%. I've been saying it. Rashford should have started, and you could see why. Just adamant to make line-breaking runs, and he gets 2 opportunities. Cut back for Fred, and Fred's got to finish that. Why not use your right foot?
I haven't even seen it back yet, but from my seat, it just looked like he had to score. I hope I'm right in saying that. I'm not being too harsh. I haven't seen it back yet, but it just looked like he had to score.
I'm at the East Stand and I can see it clearly. Just use your right foot and right in front of it.
That's all it was. He just had to
just tap it with your right foot, but he's opened up the body a bit too much, and it's missed. But we had 2 goal gaping opportunities. Rashford should have scored at the end, man. Rashford should have scored at the end. I can't even blame Sancho's game too much. Yes, a lot of cutbacks, but there was opportunities coming from this kind of stuff that he was doing today. I just feel like that final third, we've got an issue. If against Owen in the Europa League, now in the Premier League, we're not scoring, we're not finishing these chances.
Just in general, if you think about the game, I think it's only Arsenal we've won by 2 goals. That was 3-1. We're not high scoring, are we? 2-1 against Everton, 1-0 against Ammonia, 3-2 the week before against Ammonia, 0-0 here. 1-0 away at Southampton, 1-0 away at Leicester. Grinding out results, but when you don't score, this is what happens. You're going to get... Well, it's our first draw of the season, to be fair, but this can happen.
Listen. It's a good team spirit. There was fight there. When mistakes were being made, players were recovering for each other. It wasn't a capitulation. There's some spine there, and this is phase 1 of Ten Hag football. So you're gonna get results like this from time to time. But our good consistency has earned us to feel like this, and it's at home as well. We should brush these, but it just wasn't there today. It just wasn't there today. Casemiro played well. I think he came in there.
I think he's starting to just cement himself today, or do you think there was an element of Scott McTominay missing today that could have helped us today with his size and presence, or do you think no, Casemiro's slowly starting to just that's becoming his position now?
Yeah, for that role, I think that's looking like more and more his now, and he's making good decisions. I think Scott would have been missed where Fred was. I just think anyone else should have. Why wasn't Zidane playing? Why Ten Hag's only made 1 sub, but why not put Zidane in where Fred was? I don't understand.
There you go, the thoughts of Marcel there outside Old Trafford yesterday after Manchester United's 0-0 draw against Newcastle. Be sure to smash a like on the like button, guys. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. I've noticed in the chat it's getting very De Gea. It's getting very De Gea-ish. Just to clarify, guys, as I mentioned, when I spoke about De Gea there, as I mentioned, I said that I think the centre-forward position's a priority. I think right-back's a priority. I think possibly another midfielder's a priority. The De Gea one is just a case of, I'm not saying De Gea out right now. I'm just saying, come the end of the season, a decision will have to be made on David De Gea because he's running out of contract. They are the facts. A decision will have to be made if he's going to stay, if he's going to leave. You can argue it's not a priority, but come the end of the season, time will have run out in terms of his deal. So it will become a priority. You may not consider it to be a priority in terms of other areas of the squad require surgery, but in terms of his actual status at Manchester United, his time is running out. He's out there saying, I want a new contract, I'm happy to stay. So that's the situation. We'll be fine this season with De Gea. He's not going to, we're not going to be not qualified for Europe because of David De Gea or anything like that. I agree, there are other priority positions, but as time goes on, it will have to, that has to be addressed because otherwise he's going to leave as a free agent or he's going to stay. So it would need to be addressed at some point. And whatever decision United make, I'm not going to sit here and, lambast the club if they keep him. I'm not sure it's the best decision, but that will be it, when it comes to David De Gea, in my opinion. If it were me, as I mentioned, I think that De Gea has been at the club for over a decade now. It'll be, 12 years come the end of the season, I think. 500 appearances. He's a Manchester United legend. No doubt about that. Can't take away anything he's done at Manchester United. But I mentioned earlier on, there are going to be really difficult decisions and difficult sort of turning points for Erik ten Hag to make as Manchester United manager. David De Gea is going to be one of them. Yesterday, nothing to do with David De Gea. The reason we drew yesterday is because we weren't clinical enough. So the only reason I bring that up is just to say that there are going to be big decisions to be made next summer. I was referring to, obviously, the summer transfer window next summer. Anyway, speaking of yesterday, because that's what we do want to talk about, focus on yesterday, I do want to talk about Bruno Fernandes. Again, largely nothing. Didn't really create all that much. Again, I think this is where squad depth comes into it. I agree. I think Mina brought it up a couple of weeks ago on the match review. It might have been last weekend whenever it was. It might have been Thursday, actually, when she said that, why can't Jadon Sancho play as a number 10? I totally agree. There needs to be a proper number 10 person that's competing with Bruno Fernandes for his spot. I think the issue that Erik ten Hag has at this point is who do you bring on for Bruno? Because in the last few games, I think he's been pretty ineffective, to be honest with you. And he hasn't... I understand he's the captain, and I understand he can have moments of brilliance and moments of genius, but in essence, I'd love to know his goals and assists this season. I remember that he scored against Southampton at St. Mary's, and it was an excellent goal. But it's getting through the games now where you do come out of it and you say, well, what is he contributing? What is he bringing to the game? What is he bringing to the table? And I do think if there was another viable number 10, and I know a lot of people will say Eriksen, but I think Ten Hag prefers to have Eriksen in that deeper role as an 8. If he had a viable competitor, maybe things would be a bit different. Maybe Bruno would be on the bench right now. I know people will say Donny van de Beek. Donny's not even fit, and Erik ten Hag's picking Bruno Fernandes over Donny van de Beek most days out of the week. He is. So again, when we look at next summer, bringing it back to what will be the future planning, next summer, he might be looking at another number 10, to be honest with you. He might be saying, actually, maybe we need another option there. And Ed T there says, when everyone is fit, we need Eriksen in the 10, get Scotty and Donny in the 8. Maybe he will decide to shake things up a bit. I said before, I don't see why necessarily we have to play over 10 anyway. Why can't we play with 2 8s and a 6? Why can't we play with Eriksen, Casemiro and McTominay? I'm not putting Fred in after yesterday, but why can't we play with that? Why can't we play a more traditional 4-3-3 where it's, 3 midfielders that are quite tight together and a little bit deeper in the pitch, and then you've got the 3 up front, you've got your 2 wingers and your striker. Why can't we go down that route? And again, that's not to say, drop Bruno, get him out the squad, he's terrible, he's rubbish. But there are just some times where if you're not playing well, we need to be agile. We need to be able to pivot to something else. No player is untouchable in this squad. And I don't think Erik ten Hag considers Bruno Fernandes untouchable, but there just are games, a bit like yesterday, where you do say, well, what is he really offering to the side? What is he really pushing towards the side? And look, maybe a game like yesterday is a game where instead of having Rashford come on as a striker, why don't you just move Bruno into that position of Cristiano Ronaldo up front, swap Ronaldo for Rashford or whatever, and put Rashford on the left hand side. I don't know. It's weird because you look back to when Bruno first came, and I think I asked this on one of the match reviews the other day as well. Bruno Fernandes, when he came in for Manchester United, and those numbers he did in those first 18 months were incredible. You'd put him up against any player in the league. You know, he was getting more assists than anyone or more goals than anyone since he arrived. And it's funny because there were those people at the time that said, I'll tell you what though about Bruno, that once those goals and assists dry up, what does he offer? And at the time, it felt like a bit of a ludicrous thing to say, really, didn't it? Because, well, that's what he offers, goals and assists. But when they do dry up, what does he contribute in terms of team progression or in terms of progressing a move up the pitch? Not a ton. And that needs to be resolved for Manchester United. Again, it's not a case of Bruno should never play or Bruno doesn't offer anything to the side or anything like. Well, he's not offering all that much to the side, but he should never play. It's just there might be a period of time where Bruno just needs to be taken out the side for a couple of games because he just doesn't feel like he's at that point at the moment, in my opinion. But there you go. Anyway, what did Faz have to say after the game? He's usually got a few opinions. Here's what Faz had to say.
Shaw, Sancho, Bruno, Casemiro, Anthony. Anthony, Casemiro, Bruno, Sancho, Shaw. That's it. Swings and roundabouts. Nobody attacking. Nobody trying to have a shot on goal. Nobody trying to run in behind. Nobody trying to cause a threat. Nothing. Everybody just stood there passing the ball to each other. Yeah, we wanted passing football, but we still needed to make some chances. The only proper chance, this guy, man, Fred. And this is what people call me, I flip-flop. Look at this guy. You lot named him Fredinho.
You probably did as well.
Yeah, of course. And look now.
Don't. You need to stop doing this. No, because what you do is you just act like everyone else but Faz did it. You at the time you probably did it.
Yes.
Right. And you was probably saying Gilberto Carlos at the time as well. You was on these trains.
But that's what the point I'm making.
Right, okay. Right. Well, say you as well, not you lot. You're part of it. But I hear you.
I'm a different level of crackhead.
That's what KG would say.
But you see what I mean? In this particular game,
how much of a drop off in quality was that from when you go from Eriksen to Fred and look, when the sighs and the gasps and the ahs start coming and it starts getting on top of Fred, his confidence going down and he has the chance at the end, should score. It just wasn't his day, and we just know what has to happen when he plays in the final third. This is a similar theme.
But what do I say when Eriksen and Scott McTominay are playing? I say the same thing. Look at our bench. Who are the problem solvers? We don't have problem solvers. We don't have scary attackers. If you go in now, look at our bench today. We have the youth players, and you can't just ask them to come in a game like this and create something. It's not fair on them.
Agreed.
And if they end up making a mistake, it piles on even more.
So is that, you're right in terms of saying, like, you're basically saying the squad's not big enough, the quality of the depth is not big enough. But is that something that we have to kind of get through in Ten Hag's? This is his 9th game. Like this is where we are right now because it is so early on in his Man United career. But you're right. You're basically saying that the squad depth's just not good enough.
Yeah, but there are certain players who have upped their game. They have shown us that they deserve to be in the starting 11. Today, Fred showed us he doesn't even deserve to be in.
Those are the thoughts of Faz outside Old Trafford after the game yesterday. A comment here from Makish says, do you guys have a Discord group? We do. United View does have a Discord. It's in the video description. All of the links are in the video description to our Twitter, to our Instagram, to our TikTok, to our Discord. So if you haven't already, you can find it in the video description. I know the Discord is very active, so you can get in there, interact with all of the members of the UV community as well. Remember also, if you're in that video description, you can join the UV Members Club. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment in the live chat. Get your badges, your emojis, your exclusive members only content as well. Here's a little tidbit for you when it comes to the UV Members Club is if you noticed in the Minas clip earlier on, there was a little bit of an edit in there. There is a reason for that edit, which will be seen on an upcoming episode of UV Raw. It is one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen. That is all I'll say. And I'm not even hyping that up. It is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So if you want to see what that is coming soon on an episode of UV Raw. It's brilliant. I was in person right there. Amazing. Absolutely brilliant. So if that's not a reason to join the UV Members Club, I don't know what is. So what is coming up soon? Obviously, big game still to come. Spurs Wednesday, Chelsea Saturday. And I'm going to be honest, the Chelsea game, I'm not even, to be honest, the Chelsea game, I'm not even looking that too far ahead because we got Spurs first. And I am concerned about Spurs because while Spurs it's wild with them at the moment, isn't it? Because they're not playing particularly well. They're not playing great, but they've had the best start to the Premier League season that they've ever had. That's Antonio Conte. And I know some Spurs fans are complaining that maybe the style of play isn't great, but ultimately all they should care about is results on the board. And that's what Antonio Conte gets, is results. And I am concerned about them coming to Old Trafford. I know last season we beat them home and away. When we played them away, it was Nuno's last game. We had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still as the manager then, so we can't even talk about that. But the home game at Old Trafford last season, Ronaldo got that hat-trick. That day we didn't even play particularly great, but Ronaldo was just being prime Ronaldo at that point. It was incredible. Will that be the same game this time around? I don't think so. I'm concerned just because we have been somewhat vulnerable to counter-attack goals this season. We've been vulnerable on the transition. And I do look at a Conte side that is so potent on the counter-attack. And I do look at a Conte side that is, what's the key word this morning? Clinical. They are incredibly, incredibly clinical in that if they do get one or two chances, they're almost the total opposite to Manchester United at the moment. They'll maybe have 5 or 6 shots in the game, but 2 or 3 will be on target, and they'll win 2 or 3-0 or 2 or 3-1 because that's what they do. So they'll see the success that Newcastle had, yes, they're Old Trafford, whereby when United have the ball, and they'll be happy for United to have a lot of the ball, they'll get into their shape, they'll be difficult to break down, and then they'll be flying on the counter-attack. And when you've got people like Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, they're going to score those goals. So we need to be really, really aware of that. The positive is that our defence is really sound at the moment and really solid, I think. Again, I look at that back four, swapping Malacia or Shaw, either or's doing okay. Shaw's playing better at the moment. We're not conceding goals, so that's a positive. But you look at the midfield, and yesterday we were getting overrun at times, and you're looking at the front line of not being clinical. We've got to be clinical. Against a side like Spurs, and looking a little bit further forward, a side like Chelsea, where you're just not going to get those 15 plus shots per game. It's going to be a lot more limited. It's going to be tighter. You have to be clinical. And ironically enough, when we did beat Liverpool and Arsenal this season, we have proved when we want to be, we can be clinical. Against Arsenal, we weren't the better side, but we were the smarter side. We had the smarter coach, and we were clinical on the break, and that's why we won the game. But ironically enough, when we have a lot of the ball, we can't be clinical. So they're going to be challenging games, but to look on it from a positive point of view, if we can come out of Spurs and Chelsea with 6 points, which I don't think we'll get at, to be honest, it might be a 2-point thing, it might be a 4-point, look, it might be 0 points. But if we came out of those 2 games with 6 points, you'd be looking at that top 4 going, okay, we're really in that shout. I think where we're going to be for the remainder of this season is in the spot we are right now, where we're in maybe 5th. We're not a million miles away from 4th, so we're still in that conversation. And to be fair, if we can get to, say, March, early April, and still be in this position, 5th, touching distance with the top 4, or in 4th, just a point, where people are a point away from us, then I think we'd have done pretty well. This is going to be the season for Manchester United. This is what it's going to be like. It's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then sometimes 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And ultimately, you could argue, well, Owen, you end up in the same position then. Sometimes that's what it's going to be. It's going to be really slow and steady progression, in my opinion. And that's just kind of what we've got to get used to this season, unfortunately. We're going to have games like yesterday. But if we can come out of the next 2 games with a couple of decent results, then obviously I'll be completely thrilled. So there you go, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Jam-packed day coming as well today, folks. Really, really exciting day. We've got the Tactical View. Tactical View is back with Cam and myself today. So we're going to break down yesterday's game, break down the tactics, break down the shape. I'm really interested to see what he thought of that front three, see what he thought about the midfield performance, see what he thought about Newcastle's shape and how they set up. So that's going to be coming out later today. And, of course, Full View is going to be this evening. So we're going to have the panel from last week there as well. We're going to have myself, Flex, KG, Mina, Marcel and Faz. So we're going to have a loaded show, a loaded day of content here at United View. So if you haven't already, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. How many likes did we end up in? It feels like disgraceful settings. Wow. We got nearly 600 people watching, only 160 likes. Wow. I mean, guys, we can do better. On the way out, we can get to 200. I know we can. I know we can. I believe in you. I have faith in you guys. So, yeah, be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As I mentioned, Tactical View, full view is coming today. And plenty of content coming because we've got massive games. We've got Spurs Wednesday. We've got some really, actually, I'm not even bigging this up. We've got some really exciting stuff coming for that game. And obviously the Chelsea game at the weekend too. So, I'm out of here. Have a good Monday. And I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Peace.